I talk a lot about the 4 C's of mental toughness, and those are control, confidence, commitment, challenge. These two here, when it comes to chatter, really resonate best probably with emotional control and life control. So we'll kind of make that connection. And the thing that's really important to understand is that chatter that's in our head, essentially what it does, it could be positive, but oftentimes it centers around the negative, things that cause us stress and anxiety. And when we can learn to control that, right, we can perform better. And that's what this is all about.
Welcome to Charge Forward Coaching, the podcast for committed athletes and individuals who want to achieve more on and off the field. Hosted by James Blasco, certified mental toughness and resilience coach. You'll gain insights and inspiration from elite athletes, coaches, and others who know what it takes to excel. Are you ready to go to the next level? Then tune in, get inspired, and let's charge forward. Now here's your host, James Blasco.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Charge Forward Coaching Podcast. I'm James Blasco. Thanks for joining in. Well, today we're going to cover an interesting topic. In the previous 2 episodes, we talked about the outer critic and the inner critic. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper and more specific into the inner chatter that happens within our brains, all of us, all day long, 24/7. And we're going to talk about how we might be able to manage some of that a little bit better, so it works in our favor. And a lot of the information about the topic today came from this book. It's a great book. It's called Chatter by Ethan Kross. And it talks specifically about that little voice in our head and what we could do to improve and make sure that what we're saying to ourselves works in a positive way for us. So I kind of broke it down into 2 areas of how to help improve that. Now, in the book, he goes through several different ways to improve that chatter in your head. But today I'm going to stick to 2 that hopefully you could start to use right away. One is your environment and the environment cues, and the other is rituals. So we'll dive into those 2 things and give you some tips on how you can implement them and kind of quiet the chatter, because this is really about control. And you know, I talk a lot about the 4 C's of mental toughness, and those are control, confidence, commitment, challenge. These 2 here, when it comes to chatter, really resonate best probably with emotional control and life control. So we'll kind of make that connection. And the thing that's really important to understand is that chatter that's in our head, essentially what it does, it could be positive, but oftentimes it centers around the negative, things that cause us stress and anxiety. And when we can learn to control that, right, we can perform better. And that's what this is all about. So we'll dive into, we're going to start with environment. But before we go there, kind of want to break up, there's 2 forms of attention. And we talk a lot about attention and focus. And you need that to help get control of things, right? So there's 2 forms of attention. There's voluntary attention, and that is when you specifically decide you're going to focus on something. It could be, reading or studying, or it could be a specific task at hand, maybe practice, whatever. So that's voluntary, and that's normal. We need to do that. You do need to be aware, though, that sucks up a lot of mental energy, right? It kind of depletes that, and you can only do it for so long, and then you're not going to work as well. So then there's another kind of attention called involuntary. And that's when you might be walking down the street and like they mention in the book, and you see somebody playing a guitar, gets your attention, you hear it, it sounds good. All of a sudden there, it doesn't really take a lot of work. Same thing within nature. You see something, it's beautiful, right? It doesn't require a lot of mental effort, but it has your attention and you're zeroed in on it. So the difference between the 2 is, again, the voluntary attention requires energy, and you have to be careful of when you're doing that, how much you use. The involuntary doesn't. So when we talk about the environment, what we're trying to do is create the least amount of voluntary attention on things as we can. So our mind isn't constantly using its energy. And more importantly, if you have a sense of anxiety or stress or things, controlling your environment will help bring down the anxiety and stress. So what do we mean by environment? Well, it's kind of just what it says. It could be your home. It could be your bedroom. It could be your office, right? Those types of things. What you want to do is design those areas in a way that makes you feel really comfortable, right? And organized and in control. It's really important, and it's easy to do. All you got to do is you could tidy up. You could put certain things in certain places so you don't have to go looking for them all the time. You could create a quiet space for yourself. You could create more lighting. There's all kinds of things you could do to improve your environment. The other thing with environment is the actual environment. They've done so many studies on what's referred to as green spaces. And what they found with green spaces is it automatically reduces stress, anxiety, concern, all those things. And the actual greenness in the environment plays a huge role of that. So here's the thing. You might be saying, well, maybe I'm in a more of a metro area. I don't get to see a lot of green. You could create that environment within your house with some plants or whatever. But even better than that, they also found that just looking at pictures of the environment or listening to like waterfalls, those types of things, reduces stress and anxiety. And all of a sudden, your mind's a little bit clearer. So easy ways to do that using nature and the environment. And then lastly, we want to find and be aware of moments of awe, right? When all of a sudden you see something, I brought it up on a previous podcast, the Grand Canyon, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. It's something that kind of puts you in a different zone where you're not really focused on time. You're not really focused on your worries. It's kind of like, man, this is amazing. We all have access and could see something like this. It's bigger than us. It's a huge thing. So awe is really important, and it takes away all the anxiety and stress. So those are three things you can work on. Organize your environment, find those green spaces, and find something where you go, wow, that's incredible. All of that will help reduce stress and anxiety and clear up your mind so you could use it for more information and knowledge to put forth in whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So the second way that you can help eliminate some of that chatter in your brain when you're talking to yourself, bring down anxiety and stress, is through rituals. Now, rituals are different than routines. And you know, I've talked before about routines. I'm big on routines. I think they're super important, and you should apply them to your daily life and your weekly life and so forth. However, routines are things that could be changed. You could change your routine, and it's not a huge deal, right? Routines also aren't necessarily tied to something of super high value to you or the purpose. It's just something to kind of organize your day, you know, cuts down on the thinking and so forth, and you could go about doing what you're doing efficiently. But rituals are different. Rituals are tied closely to our values and our purpose, and they mean a lot more. And rituals do couple really important things. Number one, they kind of distance you from that stress and anxiety. So a lot of athletes have rituals. Wade Boggs, for example. So for those of you who remember him, the baseball player, before every game, he took 150 ground balls, right? And then if the game was at 7:35, at 7:17 exactly, he would run his wind sprints. And then, probably earlier than that, before every game, he ate chicken. So he had a ritual that played a big part in not just reducing stress and anxiety, but creating the ultimate focus. It was more than just a routine. It was how he had his mind, how he got his mind set and ready to play each and every game and execute at the highest level. And rituals could be superstitions too. And I know it's kind of funny, like, come on, what are we talking about? Superstitions and rabbit's foot and all those kinds of things. But if you could bring meaning to something, it works. It really works. It has to be pure though. So your ritual has to be pure. It has to be something that means a lot to you. It's part of your values, your purpose. It could be part of your religion. All those things are important. And the thing is, you do it all the time, every time, in your pregame, in your postgame, however you plan to do it. That ritual is a part of you and your execution for that event, for that game, for that match. So there are some things that you could work on to reduce the chatter in your head, kind of control it, make it more positive, distance yourself from it a little bit. Just simply looking at your environment, having your rituals if you don't already, and then you can move forward in a much more constructive way and not let all that negative chatter influence not just your behavior, your execution, performance, and ultimately your results. All right, so thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff, but most of all, keep charging forward.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Charge Forward Coaching. Remember, the journey to greatness is built on mental toughness and consistent effort. So head on over to chargeforwardcoaching.com and book a free discovery call to take the next step in your journey. Until next time, stay focused, stay determined, and keep charging forward.